Hi, I'm Mark Henderson from the R&D group at Serena, and I'm going to talk about Passtickets and the new 8.1 release of ChangeMan ZMF. Now, when we were looking at requirements for the release, we underwent a security review and decided there was room for improvement in the area of mainframe-based clients connecting to ChangeMan ZMF through TCP/IP. Now, we know that standard password or passphrase validation is done when you log on to TSO or when you submit a batch job, such that when you execute on the same LPAR as a ZMF started task, the MVS control blocks built by the validation will allow ChangeMan ZMF to ensure the user is who he says he is. And what this means is that there is no need to prompt the user for his logon credentials. It's another story though when you execute on a different LPAR. Those very same control blocks are remote and difficult to get at, and all we actually have is a message from TCP/IP. So the challenge was to provide user validation, but at the same time neither request nor expose the user's password or passphrase. To address this very sort of need, IBM's RACF development team came up with a secured sign-on function. This involves an alternative to the traditional password or passphrase known as a pass ticket. And this has the following attributes. It's an 8-byte alphanumeric value. It's application and user ID specific. It's valid for approximately 10 minutes. And during that 10 minutes it can only be used once. So there's some RACF administration associated with use of the Passticket facility, and I'm going to show you at a very high level what that consists of. The first command we can see here is a command which will actually activate the Passticket data class. That may already have been done at your site. The second command defines a profile that allows access to Passtickets under an application name of CERNET. That CERNET value is hard-coded and cannot be changed. You can set a UAC on the define of the profile to give a universal access, or you can issue individual permits for users or groups of users, and what that will do is actually allow those users to actually use CERNET. And finally, you have to issue a setrops refresh to refresh in-core profiles. So that RACF administration done, the main technical challenge as far as Serena was concerned in adopting pass-ticketing support was that of providing a means for an unauthorized client to invoke the RACF pass-ticket generator, which is an authorized function. And to address this, we wrote a small utility called CERSET. What this does is to install a PC routine, and that bridges the gap between the unauthorized client world and the authorized RACF function. CERSET needs to run just once per IPL per LPAR. It'll be invoked automatically every time a ZMF started task comes up, or it can be invoked on an as-needed basis using JCL provided in SAMPLIB. When you have a setup where users on one LPAR are logging onto a started task on another LPAR, you'll need to take the explicit JCL approach. Serena's general recommendation is that you actually set up CERSET to run on all LPARs as part of your post-IPL procedures. That way you can forget about it. The utility is very, very quick and its footprint is negligible. So once the RACF administration has been done and CERSET is executed, Passtickets can now be generated. But there's one important footnote I want to leave you with regarding Passtickets and protected user IDs, and that is that you cannot generate a Passticket for a protected user ID. Okay, so what is a protected user ID? It's one for whom the no password or the no phrase attribute is set. Often users are defined for the purposes of submitting jobs that perform privileged functions, in this case privileged ZMF functions. But those user IDs do not want to be used for log-on purposes, and that's what the protected attribute is there for. The importance of all this is that when a job request in ZMF services is submitted under such a user ID, and remember this only applies to a job submitted on an LPAR that's remote from the LPAR hosting the started task, then an alternate user ID must be provided, and that's a user ID for whom a pass ticket can be generated. This is achieved by adding a user ID tag to your input XML, and that value associated with that tag must have two attributes. The first one is it must be a user ID for whom a pass ticket can be generated, i.e. one that is unprotected. Secondly, it must be a user who is allowed to impersonate. So the RACF class name and profile name are both embedded inside the CRLC sec source that you'll probably have customized when you installed ChangeMan ZMF. So once that user ID tag is provided and the value is good for pass ticket generation and for impersonation, then that job submission will work. And I'm actually going to demonstrate this to you now. So I brought up my started task earlier, and what I'm going to do now is to turn on tracing so we can see what actually comes across in terms of IP traffic. So that turns on the network trace, and now what we're actually going to do is submit a job from my main user ID of mhender, M-H-E-N-D-E-R, and what we're going to try and do is impersonate a user ID called mhender2, which is my secondary ID. So I will issue the submit command for that. And what we see is a lot of output. Importantly, this is the command that has come in representing the request for that user ID to log on. And what we see in here, there is the original user ID. There, bridging two lines, is the secondary ID. And that there is the 8-byte alphanumeric pass ticket value. So what we have here is a user ID who is defined as protected, but who supplies an alternate ID and is still allowed to log on. And what we actually see in the JAS message log is instead of a logon message for the primary name of mhender, is we see a logon message for the secondary name of mhender2. So that closes a session on pass tickets and their use in ChangeMan ZMF release 8.1.